Hello and thanks for staying on LN 24/7. This is Politics Now. My name is Morno Balagbobo. We've got quite a show for you tonight. So sit back, relax, get your family together, sit on the couch, and let's talk politics. Well, our first topic today is the local government autonomy. We're looking at matters arising. Here is a rundown of some of our talking points. We'll look at the argument over the operation of joint accounts between states and local government. Talk about the calls for the dissolution of existing local government committees. There's also calls for INEC to conduct local government elections and the challenge of accountability of local chairmen. And we'll also talk about the impact of local government autonomy on grassroots development. Well, joining the conversation virtually shortly is Ekejuiba Deberechi Kingsley, a public affairs analyst. Kingsley is the founder of Progressive Abia Youths and an advocate of inclusive democracy. Also, Mr. Jide Ojo will be joining us tonight later on the show. Mr. Jide is a development consultant, author of the book Nigeria, Corruption and Opacity in Governance, and also a Punch News columnist. Then later on the show, more to do about the U.S. presidential election. There's a whole lot of drama. So ahead of the election coming in November, we'll be talking about Donald Trump rally shooting, the state of America's politics. Some are calling it the politics of violence. We'll get into all of that. Then calls for Biden to step down as Democratic Party candidate. And we'll also look at the impact of a Biden or Trump presidency for Africa. Well, joining us later on the show tonight, Dr. Bejamin Akwei, political analyst. He is the founder of Bella Associates Consulting in the United States and the Sankofa African Affairs Virtual Discussion webinars. But all that and more just shortly after this timeout. So let's get to the vein of conversation for tonight, which has to do with the local government autonomy. There's been a lot of reactions. Well, Nigerians across different political and ethnic divides have hailed the Supreme Court of Nigeria on its landmark judgment on local government autonomy, especially financial autonomy granted the 774 local government councils on Thursday in Abuja. Well, recall that Justice Emmanuel Agim-led Supreme Court justices delivered a judgment on Thursday filed by the federal government against the governments of the 36 states seeking full autonomy for the 774 local government councils in the country, as the Supreme Court held that first, it is legal, illegal, and unconstitutional for governors to receive and withhold funds allocated to local government areas in their states. And also local government allocations from the federation account should henceforth be paid directly to the local governments. And the amount standing to the credit of the local government councils must be paid by the federation to the local government councils and not by any other person or body. And no state government should be paid money standing to the credit of the local government councils, and also ruled an order for immediate enforcement and compliance with these orders by the state governments and successive governments henceforth. Let's have a listen to some of the reactions from governors in the country.
The allocation goes straight to the chairman. I think, to me, it's a good thing. But the thing the people should equally, the local government people should do, is that there must be monitoring. We should be able to ask them for accountability.
Since I've been here for about 4 years ago, it's been normal thing for government to allow us to access our money. But for others, I mean, it's a relief to the local government, because if you see Lagos State, it's only Lagos State that the local government is operating. I can tell you now, I'm doing a road of over 1.3 billion, 3 roads. I'm doing it direct, it's not from state.
Okay, that's just a few of the governors that have reacted. But I want us to listen to the reaction of the Nigerian Governors Forum. And they are billed to hold another meeting later this week to also discuss some line of actions regarding the Supreme Court judgment. Let's have a listen to what they said last week.
Welcome the ruling of the Supreme Court. Compliance is a given. And our Attorney Generals have applied for the enrollment order, which we'll study carefully. But by and large, governors are happy with the devolution of power in respect to local government autonomy. It relieves the burden on governors. People really don't know how much states expend in building out local governments. And that's the issue there. Thank you. It's not going to affect the states. We've never tampered with local government funds, so it's going to continue. What the local governments have to do is to manage themselves, especially with the upcoming minimum wage, to manage their affairs and make sure salaries are paid. Traditional rulers get their 5%, and those are the main issues.
So tonight on the show, our mission is to dissect all the concerns that has been raised because of this Supreme Court judgment. So let me just break it down for you before we bring in our guest. Number one, the constitutional provision on the operation of joint accounts between the states and the local government. When you look at section 1626 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, it mandates the states to operate a local government account. Let's take a look at that section in the Constitution. Now, section 162(6) of the Constitution as amended, I read in quote, it says, each state shall maintain a special account to be called state joint local government account, into which shall be paid all allocations to the local government councils of the state from the federation account and from the government of the state. Then further in section 1627, the Constitution goes further to mandate each state to pay a percentage of its earnings to the local government. So that's the big bane here. And some people are like, you can't just pay directly to the state, rather to the local government, because that's a breach of the Constitution. Another thing that is very key that we need to discuss tonight is that there is also the question of local council development authorities, LCDAs, like you have in Lagos, which the Supreme Court had declared in Kuwait as far back as 2006, but which has become a fad among states in recent years. That's also an issue. Then, what use will the state joint local government accounts continue to serve? Will it be abandoned? Then what happens to the balances or liabilities, if any, in such an account while the states ran the show? So what's going to happen to that? Then we'll talk about the opposition. Let's say, for example, in Rivers State, where the APC on Sunday called on Governor Siminalayi Fubara to respect last week's judgment of the Supreme Court, which declared it is illegal to run local government areas with caretaker committees. What about states also running local government caretakers committees in other states of the country? Now, the Nigerian Civil Society Situation Room has also called for a reform to the process for conducting elections into local government councils in the wake of the Supreme Court's judgment in favor of local government's financial autonomy from the state. Also recall the continued existence of the State Independent Electoral Commission, and as stipulated by the Constitution, when you check section 1971 of the Constitution, the SIESCS are recognized as one of the state bodies which can only cease to exist via constitutional amendments. So will the states let go of these election organizing bodies in their state, which is a potent force that will enable the governors to control the happenings at the councils? So many questions, but time will answer, of course, as we see this play out. And my first reaction to the ruling of the Supreme Court was that I'm actually excited that this is happening, at just the early stage of President Bola Tinubu's administration, because that way we will test, the efficacy of this ruling and how it will go on to impact the lives of the citizens in the country. But enough talk. Let's bring in our guest who is standing by, Ekejuiba Deberechi and Jide Ojo, who will join us shortly. Thank you so much, Ekejuiba, and good to be with you once again on the show.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine as always.
The pleasure is all mine. So quickly, what is your take on the argument? I know you're not a lawyer that's talking about shared accounts between the local government and the states. And we've seen legal luminaries in the country, go on national TV to argue that this is a breach and this could set a precedent, for the Supreme Court to just make rulings. And why has the courts suddenly become lawmakers? The court is supposed to uphold the law and not really make a new law. What's your reaction to this?
And of course, I've been one of the frontline advocates for local government autonomy, and not just autonomy for the local government, but of course autonomy for the different tiers and different arms of government. The autonomy for the judiciary, autonomy for the legislature, and every other institution that makes up our democratic system. So the local government was actually, the concept of the local government was, let me take you back to first principle, if I should use that. The local government was actually established in the 1979 Constitution, formed from part of the 1976 setup, and it was designed from that concept to provide at the grassroots level of that situation where Nigerians at the lower level will need some sort of a governance system that attends to the needs, given the fact that, of course, they're meant to see what also establishes what you're trying to say, and the fact that the focus should be on the Nigerian people, not necessarily the elite or the political class. The question again you ask is, the ruling of the Supreme Court, does it serve the interests of the average Nigerian? Does it speak to the yearnings of Nigerians across the 30 states and 774 local governments? Well, my answer will be a resounding yes. I'm talking about the arguments around the process and the interpretation of the ruling of the Supreme Court. I do think also that it's important for us to pay attention to the process. The local government as an institution was established in the 1999 Constitution in section, in part 2 of the Constitution, that's in chapter 1, part 2, section 7, establishes local government as an institution. But there's a problem, there's a challenge in that section. Yes, you're right when you say that, oh yeah, but of course, I have my constitution handy, and of course, these things are written in English language. As much as we depend on the court to interpret, we can read these things and understand them, and of course, have the courts do their job. But if you look at that section 7, where the local government as an institution of government was established, you'll find that the local government was structured to work in tandem with the state government. Local government was designed from that constitution to work in tandem with the state government. In fact, it's more or less like a boss and an apprentice relationship. The local government was designed to be more or less like an apprentice to state, being the boss or the mother. So in that instance, if I should describe, I would say that the local government was designed to be the baby, while the state was designed to be more or less like the mother. And that also was well explained in the administration of the local government as described in the 1999 Constitution as amended. Section 7, if you read from subsection 1, you will find that towards the end of that section, the State House of Assembly has the primary responsibility to decide, or rather supervise activities of the local government. So yes, the question around the process and of course the judgment not being directly in tandem with the provision of the Constitution, that can be argued, but is the judgment in favor of the yearnings of Nigerian people? The answer is a resounding yes, because the experiment that we have, the democratic experiment that we've had to observe over the years in Nigeria has not worked. So Nigerians are yearning for something different. Nigerians are trying to see how we can get governance to the grassroots and then do that experiment and see what comes out of it.
All right, so Ekejuiba, let's look at the impact of the judgments on the states to rule over the local governments, because when you look at the hierarchy, the presidency, the states, federal government rather, the states, local government. So a lot of people are skeptical that they say if you give financial autonomy to the local governments, that's power, that's political power, because you've got to follow the money. So they're saying that the impact on the states to rule will become challenging. What are your worries? Do you share this worry? And what is also the bright side? Because everybody seems to be so skeptical about this ruling. You know, I overheard former Governor Fayose on TV talking about, you know, the ability of the governors to also still be able to, you know, keep their hands on check with the local government chairman. Well, what are your thoughts?
Thank you very much. Well, I've listened to several comments on this development. Of course, the Nigerian Governors Forum met, and after their meeting, the most pronounced statement from that meeting was the statement that the local government chairman should prepare to pay minimum wage, more or less saying that because the state is currently struggling to pay the minimum wage, that it will be almost impossible for the local governments to pay minimum wage. But I take an exception to that, and this is not from a theoretical perspective. I take an exception from a practical perspective, from the perspective of data and evidence. The current system has not worked. All available data shows that the current system has not worked. What should we do to improve the system? We should change, and change doesn't come easy. Change is gradual, and of course, progressive change is steady. So in this instance, let us start that gradual process of changing the political structure, not necessarily changing, but reflecting a political system that works in tandem with the yearnings of Nigerians, with the geographical situation or geographical placement of Nigeria as a state, and of course the ethnic and tribal composition of Nigeria. That was exactly why you see these things being stepped down from one level to another, so that the grassroots will get the dividends of democracy. So from that perspective, I don't have any fears. But if you now look at the area of administration, you look at the issues around administration of the local government, you may have some concerns, because if a local government chairman does not have the same vision with an executive governor of a state, you will find that they will likely have collisions, and some of these collisions can, drag throughout, the administration or the tenure of a political dispensation. Like you see, or like you saw with Rivers State, where the local government chairman of Ikwere, was having some face-off with the state chairman. Then the question becomes, if this local government chairman had that autonomy and that independence to, govern the local government at his own will, what will be the fate of the local government when you try to compare it, or rather when you try to relate it with the state, Rivers State as a state, and then of course local government as an institution in the state. So it's something that we have to iron out as we proceed, but this is the first right step in the right direction. So we cannot preempt the future. We can only work towards the future and be guided by data and evidence and working out what we need to make that future work for us. So in this instance, yes, this autonomy, the yearning for local government autonomy has been there for years. Don't forget that in 2020, President Muhammadu Buhari had signed an executive order declaring autonomy for for local government, the judiciary, and the legislature. And just like we have it now, it caused a whole lot of controversy. There were legal actions, around that, and at the end of the day, it didn't succeed. So I think it's also something that we should also applaud this administration for finding a way to get this done. Yes, the process can be questioned, but the result is in the interest of the public, as we see, and we can now work together to harmonize the gray areas and ensure that we have this reflected in the Constitution. The good thing is that the amendment process is ongoing, so this can be one of the very first things that will be inserted in the amended Constitution that the House of Representatives will churn out at the end of the day. So I do think that yes, there are concerns, but are these concerns enough to keep us where we are? The answer will be no, because we're not making so much progress as we should, as we anticipate, as we expect for a country that has so much resources, to its coffers. So I do think that yes, we started the process, but it's not going to be a walk in the park. And Nigerians across the 774 local governments now have a duty to hold the local government chairman accountable. We're talking about governors conducting elections in their state, and it was like a big deal. But if you look at what has happened in the last week or in the last month, you will see that more than 3 states already conducted local government elections. Kwara State is going to conduct the local government elections in September. So you see that these guys have placed so much emphasis on the resources that come into the state against delivering dividends of democracy. So because of the fact that now the resources will be going to local governments, they now want to quickly conduct elections so they'll be qualified to get the allocation from the federal government. So these are the issues. We shouldn't look at the negatives. Of course, there's nothing you do on this earth, on this planet.
All right, Ekejuiba, before I let you go, I recall the NAN, put out a report last week that the federal government was going to get traditional chiefs and rulers who are, embedded in the system of the local government to actually be trained on how administration in the local government will work, given the fact that the monies are going to be paid directly to them. But is that enough? Will that be enough doings on the part of the federal government to help the local government to truly be off the interference of the state governors? Because there's so many people that are really insisting that the reason why these governors are all smiling is because they will always find a loophole. And the recent local government results, if you look at what happened in Delta and Adamawa states, both flawed by the PDP, no opposition, was able to even secure one local government. So is that a true reflection of the voters in the state and, outside the influence of a state governor? Because that is just the assumption one will want to assume, that the state government, had a role in playing to ensure that they selected candidates, to run for the local government elections. So with all of this, how can the government, and I think that's why people are calling for INEC to handle the local government elections. But aside these trainings, what other ways would you suggest that the federal government can, do to ensure that the local governments are free indeed and not just financially free, so to speak?
Yeah, thank you very much. So the concerns are there, like you reeled out, but the positives far outweigh the negative concerns. So in order to ensure accountability, Nigerians have to take responsibility. That is what I would say. We don't have to keep dwelling on the federal government and the state government to do everything. We have to participate in the process. I'll give you an instance. Here in Abia, we developed a program that we called Work to Good Governance, where we engage these public officials and follow through their activities. So the first is we have to develop a system that mandates local government chairmen to give account of their expenditures every year, just as, every quarter, just as you have the state governors read out their quarterly budget performance report. So if we have that at the local government level, one will be able to, trace how the resources are used at that level. That is one. Secondly, the federal government should ensure that we have an extension of the EFCC at the 774 local government areas. I don't think that should be a big deal for them, because of course they what they're going to be doing and their work is well cut out. So their job will be to ensure that due process is followed in terms of procurement, in terms of administration and financial management at that local government level. So that is two. And three, talking about security, we have police establishments at the local government level. The DPO is there to manage the police division at the local government level. So what we need to do is to empower them more and have them work with the local government chairman. This is not actually new. We've had executive chairman of local government before now. How have they operated? It's the same way, but the thing is that they've been really, really subjected to the dictates of the state governors, because most times, they don't have the constitutional backing. In those cases, rather, they didn't have the constitutional backing to do things on their own, to stand their ground and say no here or yes here. So I think this will change that. And even if the state governors decide to put all their party members in the whole local government, through elections, you will still find that there will be reasonable people who want things done accordingly in the local government. So it's not a one-off situation. This is a first win, right? This is a quick win, and I think we shouldn't dwell so much on the big picture when we started, crafting it. This process of crafting that big picture is what is most important. What we now have to do is to now create a system that allows citizens at the grassroots level to engage this, because most people cannot meet their state governors. In fact, an average citizen will find it very difficult to meet a state governor. But if you go to the communities, the community chiefs, the locals will always have a way to engage the local government chairman.
All right, Ekejuiba, thank you so much for being with us. We'll hope to have you shortly later on the show, but we've got to let you go. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. The pleasure is always mine. God bless.
Pleasure is mine always. Okay, we have a word that Jide Ojo has connected with us. Thank you, sir, for joining us on the show tonight.
It's my pleasure.
All right, so we've been having conversations with Ekejuiba, who's been helping us understand some of the reactions so far. But I want to talk to you about the calls for the dissolution of existing local government committees. How do you think this would play out, given the fact that these are under the coffers of the state government? So how will it work? The Supreme Court ruling did not do anything about that. So hopefully we will see this get back to the National Assembly, where proper legislations can be carried out to cater for some of these loopholes that the Supreme Court did not handle. Well, they are not supposed to handle that, because this has to do with the Constitution and the law. Then also the calls for INEC to conduct local government elections. Is this too much burden for INEC? But I think the issue here is trust. So go ahead, sir.
Now, I don't know about those who are saying that they want to go and resume their offices, having been dissolved. But I think going forward, what this Supreme Court judgment of last Thursday meant is that it may not be able to have a retroactive effect, but at least going forward, we know that if they starting with Rivers State and several other states that are yet to conduct local government. I think the Guardian of today is talking about 21 states that have to already go and conduct local government because they are in breach of the constitutional provision in Section 7, which says local governments shall not be undemocratically governed. So the concern in the media and from many well-meaning Nigerians is that what's the credibility quotient of these elections that the court is asking them to go and conduct? We have seen in Delta and Adamawa State, all the positions from the 25 local governments in Delta states and all the councillorship positions were won by PDP. And anytime APC states, a Labour Party or ABGAB states conducts their own, they also win everything. It's only in Kaduna and Abuja FCT that I've seen opposition party winning some of the positions. And what needs to be done now is there is still need for further legislative action on the Constitution to streamline the Supreme Court decision, to bring it to uniformity with the provision of the Constitution. For instance, the entire Section 162 of the Constitution needs to be overhauled. Adamawa State government, from what I read in the news, has approached the Supreme Court to seek interpretation of Section 162, subsection 1, 2, and 3. And some other states are actually most likely going to follow suit because it seems that those Section 1, 2, 3 or Section 1, subsection 1, 2, 3 of the Constitution is at variance with the provision that the judgment of the Supreme Court. But that's on the one side. Assuming without considering, as is said in law, that even the judgment of the Supreme Court again reaffirm its position and rule the states out of order and say that there is no friction or there is no ambivalence between his position, earlier position, and that of Section 162, sub 1, 2, and 3. The question is about operationalization of that local government fund. First, the quality of elections. We have State Independent Electoral Commission that is more like an appendage of the state government house. And they take dictation from the governor, they return all the governorship, all the candidates preferred by the government. And this is unconnected with the fact that the State Independent Electoral Commission is not financially autonomous. I said on an earlier media program today that rather than just saying INEC should conduct all elections, we can actually strengthen the State Independent Electoral Commission and ensure that they are on first line charge of the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the state. Because why people prefer INEC now to conduct state local government election is because they have seen marked improvements in the way INEC used to conduct election between 1999 and 2007 and 2011. And the improvement that has been witnessed between 2011 and date. What people fail to realize is that as a result of the Justice Muhammad Lawal Uwais Committee on Electoral Reform, which submitted its report in December 2008, the president, former president Umaru Musa Yar'Adua sponsored an executive bill that amended the relevant section of the Constitution to give INEC financial autonomy. And since 2010, INEC has been on first line charge of the Consolidated Revenue Fund, which means that whatever is earmarked for INEC in the budget gets to it as part of the service-wide vote. But this similar thing has not happened at the state level. In fact, when former President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua wanted to implement that section that says INEC should conduct all elections, the governors approached him and said, look, we are practicing federalism. Why do you want to centralize everything? That even in US, where we copied the presidential system of government, Federal government of America does not conduct elections. The elections in America is conducted by state government, who are even clearly partisan. It is conducted by Secretary to the State, Secretary of State, which is more like a political appointee in the state. Is the one that coordinates the election in the state. It's not Federal Electoral Commission of US. Federal Electoral Commission of US just supervise the party finance of the US system. So if you want to copy presidentialism, then you must also learn to devolve power. That is the same argument we are pushing that is making us to say that we need state police to deal with issue of insecurity in Nigeria. So if in one breath, people want state police, but in another breath, you now want state institution to be taken over by federal institution because you don't have faith in that state institution. And you are saying, oh, scrap state independent electoral commission without looking at why they have refused, why they have not performed. The reason why state independent electoral commission has not performed maximally or creditably is because they are financially dependent on the state government.
All right, Sir Jide, let's talk about the challenge of accountability of local government chairmen in general, because if you listen to the interview with Fayose, he also mentioned the fact that some local government workers don't even come to work, which could also be as a result of nonchalant attitude of local government chairmen to their work. But as someone as myself who has traveled around the country and have visited so many local government areas in this country, I can tell you for a fact that the major challenge seems to be the availability of funds. But I would also like you to also harp on the impact of the local government autonomy on grassroots development, which is something that I think is key for this administration that is, promising renewed hope for Nigerians. What are your thoughts quickly?
I've written in my column in The Punch a couple of articles on how we can ensure local government autonomy. Yes, financial autonomy is number one, but there is a need for political autonomy. And don't forget where we started this discussion about the credibility quotient of the elections that takes place at the local government level, and why it is increasingly difficult for a political party other than the party at the center in the state to win even a seat in the councillorship position. So you need to fix it from that point. State Independent Electoral Commission must have financial autonomy. But you see, there is a bigger, if you really don't want to go the whole hog, which is, it's not a 100-meter sprint, it's a marathon. If you want to overhaul local governments in Nigeria, what you can also do, according to Afenifere has lambasted Tinubu administration for even this. They said the president was grandstanding and that this is not in sync with federalism. So what Afenifere is claiming is the classical definition of federalism as espoused by Professor K.C. Ware, which is a leading authority in federalism for those who are students of political science. So K.C. Ware talks about in a federal system there are two locus of power, two loci of power rather. We have the federal and the federating units, the federal government and the federating unit. And the federating unit happens to be the state. So that there are two layers of power. But in our own case, we have added the third tier, which is the local government. So in order to put all of this to an end, all these controversies, I think what could be done is that, okay, remove everything that has to do with local government from the constitution. Scrap all the existing local government and let every state create local government that it deserves. The number it wants, if you like, go and create 500 local governments in your state. It's your own thorough. You have to find a way to fund it from whatever allocation you are getting from the federal government. So that way, federal government will wash its hand off how these local governments are administered. That is one pathway that you can actually leave the governor to manage the affairs of the local government in their state. So there will be no those local governments that are listed in the constitution saying, okay, Lagos has 20 local government, but 37 LCDA. Kano has 44 local government. I don't know whether the Kano state government has also created LCDA. But we saw in many states creation of LCDA, because this whole controversy will be, how then will you fund the LCDA? Interestingly, there is a constitutional provision that says that state government must jointly fund local government. State and federal government is a concurrent issue. So the state is also supposed to put its own resources to the funding of local government. But what they have done is like what many state governments did, establishing tertiary institutions without having the required funding to make them perform. And that's why you see a state will have 3 universities, 5 polytechnics, 10 colleges of education, but they will just be managing to pay salaries. You then ask, how do you expand the infrastructure? The hostel accommodation, the administrative blocks, lecture theaters, library, laboratories. How do you fund those, even the infrastructure within the school, the road, the water, the security, and other utilities?
Okay, Mr. Jide Ojo, I'm so sorry, because of our time we've got to go, because our guest from the US is standing by with us. But thank you so much for your thoughts tonight on the local government autonomy that has been ruled in, of course, to take effect immediately. Thank you so much for being with us.
Pleasure. Do have a great day. Stay safe.
All right, and you too, sir. Okay, we'll go on a quick break, and of course, when we come back, we just have a few minutes to talk about the U.S. presidential election. Stay with us. Glad to know you're still with us right here on LN 24/7. It's Politics Now, and this time around we want to focus on some of the developments regarding the U.S. presidential election. Well, let's give you a rundown of the talking points once again. The Donald Trump rally shooting, the state of America's politics, calls for Biden to step down as the Democratic Party candidate, and the impact of a Biden or Trump presidency. Well, joining us is Dr. Bejamin Akwei, political analyst, and of course he will be helping us to understand some of what is going on in America. So as Americans get ready to go to the polls in November, the drama building up to the elections is at a fever pitch. Tonight we'll begin with former President Donald Trump's assassination attempt. He was injured in the ear in a shooting at a campaign rally in Pennsylvania on Saturday. He was discussing a surge in border crossings by undocumented immigrants under President Joe Biden, and that was when the shots rang out and at least left someone killed. Trump ducked to the ground while several Secret Service agents hurried to the stage and surrounded him. And according to U.S. Secret Service, multiple shots were fired towards the stage from an elevated position outside the rally venue. Authorities neutralized the shooter, who is now deceased. And the attack represents the first instance in decades where a current or former president has been shot, occurring less than 4 months before the presidential election. It also takes place just 2 days before the start of the Republican National Convention, which is currently on in the United States. But this is not the first time this is happening. We have a timeline of some of the assassination attempts against U.S. presidents, but I won't be able to read all of them, but our team of producers will help us just scroll through some some of the major ones, starting from Abraham Lincoln. We can just move past the slides. That's Abraham Lincoln in 1965, James Garfield, the 20th president, and the next one. Let's just slide over them quickly. William McKinley, Theodore Roosevelt, and also Franklin Roosevelt, and just a whole lot of them, but because of time, we may not be able to go into all of the details there. But there you have it. This is not the first time that this is happening. Well, and of course, let's just get straight to introduce our guest on the show. Well, joining us right away from the United States is Dr. Bejamin Akwei. Thank you so much for being with us on Politics Now.
Thank you very much.
All right, Prof, good to have you on the show. Now, let's go straight to the conversation. I mean, you stay in the United States, and of course, you monitor policy across Africa and also the United States. You've been seeing what's going on. America is like the standard of, the dividends of democracy that any nation can desire for itself. And having this violence, just in the height to the build-up of the elections in November, it's quite pathetic. Several world leaders has condemned this assassination attempt. What is your reaction basically to what American politics is becoming?
Yeah, anyway, first of all, we have to be grateful to the God Almighty that the president, even though was had an assassinated attempt, right, is well and on doing his well, right? He issued an official statement, and like he said, today we're going to be starting the Republican convention today. So we are grateful that the former President Trump is doing very well, right? So the point is that since January 6th, right, what happened on January 6th, right, the American people have been so much, or let's say the American electorate have been so much polarized, right? It used to be, we've seen situations like that historically. We've seen situations where the American electorate or American party or American politics has been a little bit polarized. But this time around, right, it's worse than we've seen, because the point is that the former president feels like the current government is after him to destroy him. So that has made his base to become a little bit more radical. Then you see those on the Democratic side also more radical. So this has contributed to this polarization. So both sides see themselves to be enemies, which shouldn't be the case. We've had situations like that in American politics anyway. In the 1981, you saw what happened with Ronald Reagan. He was then Californian governor, then he came over, then there was an assassinated attempt on his life. Then that was able to unite the country, right? And he went ahead to win the elections. With respect to Trump, right, we don't really know what the impact of the assassination attempt is going to be. But the point is that American politics always come down to the middle, right? The Republicans have their base who have their feet drawn to the sand, or dig deep into the sand. The Democrats also have the same thing. So it's just the floating voters, mostly those in the middle, right, who will finally determine the outcome of the elections. But the point is that we hope that this assassination attempt will be a rallying crowd, right, a rallying crowd for both sides to find a common ground, right, in terms of how to unite the country. But like I said, the former president feels like the current government or the current administration, which is the Biden administration, is yet to come to destroy him. So he has some sort of anger in him, which you can see from his supporters. So this has been the dynamics for the past 4 years. If you look at what happened in New York, where he was charged over here, there are also cases pending in Georgia, all right? So these are some of the things. And fortunately for him, the Supreme Court was able to when the case went to the Supreme Court, they said he's immune from all criminal charges, right? So he has some relief from the Supreme Court. So he is in to get revenge. If you look at the pictures that came out, right? Initially, Trump we had some mark shots of him in New York and mark shots of him also in Georgia, right? But what happened in terms of the assassination attempt, the pictures that came out shows it's something that is going to be there for a long time, right? Based on what we already know about this mark shot that were taken of him. But this is going to be very lasting, a lasting image in terms of American politics. And we don't know whether he's going to get some sympathizers or sympathy vote based on what is actually happening. But the point is, this is where we are. And at this point, right, we hope that the leaders of both political parties, with Trump and Biden. Biden came out with a speech yesterday, right, assuring the American voters that, okay, you know what, political violence has no basis in American politics or American history, which is a very good thing. But the point is that are his supporters going to listen to what he said, so that it's not about bullets, but it's about, people going to the booth to vote during the elections. So basically, this is what is happening, right? And the point, what we have to understand is that this is not the first. We've seen from 2011, right, some of these situations where this anger, right, in American politics has taken root. We saw what happened with Gabby Giffords, right? Then we saw what happened with Scalise. There was also an attempt to kill Scalise. There was also an attempt to kidnap Whitman Grisham, who is currently the governor of Michigan. So these are some of these are things happening in American politics, which we wouldn't say is the right thing, but this is the point that this is where we are now, and we hope that this will be like a lesson to be learned. That it's all about going to the polls, rallying your people to go to the polls, and on November 7th, just go in to vote instead of using violence. But like I said, it's nothing new.
All right, Dr. Benjamin, let's talk about the Democratic Party, who seems to be in a crisis. And what are Biden's chances, given the fact that the approval ratings is low? You look at the polling, is not also doing very well. And almost 20 Democrats in Congress have called for him to step down so that another person can actually take up the presidential nominee candidacy. What are your thoughts on that?
Let me take the first question. Now, you were talking about how do you get the motive, right? Like I said, the Secret Services and the FBI will be coming through his social media platforms, because people like that, they tend to leave some trails. Because according to information that we are getting, they found some weapons over there in the house. We currently see some pictures of him during his graduation. So the FBI have their own ways of trying to find motive, right? Even though you may have doubts, right? The FBI, like I said, people like that, they tend to leave trails on social media. People that they talk to, people that they deal with on a daily basis. People will come out and be saying all kinds of things, or they'll be giving information to the FBI. So our secret agencies over here, security agencies over here, have their own way of trying to get information. You may not know the exact motives, but at least we might get closer to know what is actually happening, or what could have motivated him, right, to take certain steps, right? Maybe it could be as a result of the Supreme Court decision that recently came out. It could be as a result of what is happening now. Okay, this person is the polarizing figure that we don't need at this point. So the FBI have their own way of trying to get to the issue of motive, even though that it may not be accurate that very much. Now, then you brought the issue about polls, right? Now, the point is that American elections are normally won in certain swing states, right? Most of the polls that come out are national polls, right? And national polls are not a true reflection, right? Because don't forget, the Democrats have their own state that they have to win. Then the Republicans have their own states. So it comes down to a couple of few states: Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, right? just a couple of Nevada, probably like 5, 6 states. So if you are doing a national poll, instead of a poll which is based on these swing states, the national poll is not going to be a true reflection. But the national poll is for the whole United States. And like I said, the whole United States is not a reflection because the Democrats have their own states, which they will definitely going to win. The Republicans also have their own state, which they are going to win. But elections always come down to a couple of swing states, 5 states, right? So polls from those states, those 5 states, is a true reflection of what the American people are thinking, but not the national polls. And don't forget, we have what you call the Bradley effect. Sometimes you might have people that you may poll them, and when you poll them, they say, okay, I'm going to vote for Biden. But in actual fact, when they get to the polls, they might vote for somebody else. So even though the polls that are coming out is showing that he is not at par with Trump, that, like I said, may not be a true reflection of the polls in the United States.
All right, Doctor. Now, what will the Biden or Trump presidency mean for America, rather for Africa?
It comes down to policies, right? It seems like if you watch the Biden administration, for example, since they came to power, you can see the kind of policies that they have been trying to put in place, right, in Africa, with issue that has to do with LGBT, right, gay, lesbians. They're promoting this idea of democratic liberalism in terms of promoting some of these values, right? So if you look at the Biden administration, this is the kind of policies they tend to be promoting in Africa. If you look at the 2022 August strategic objective that they have towards Sub-Saharan Africa, right? Priority issues to be given to terrorism and counterterrorism. Other issue that has to do with issues of gays and lesbians. Compared to Trump, with the issue of Trump, Africans are kind of a little bit on the edge with issues that has to do with immigration. But if you look at the time Trump was in power, Trump did not engage in any kind of serious wars, right? Trump is more about the American people, even though that is what he says, right? He's only out for his personal interest. But during his time, we see that there was some sort of stability in the system, right? During Trump's time, we never had Ukraine on our hands, right? But when the Biden administration came in, right, because of the idea of promoting democratic liberalism throughout the world, that is why we have Ukraine on our hands. So on the whole, personally, I would say that maybe Trump will be best for Africa. But the point is that Africans are just so much worried that he is more or less anti-immigration. So that is a fear. But if you look at the other side, for example, like I'm saying, the idea of counterterrorism and terrorism, seeing what is happening in the Sahel, militarization of the region, and that is what has led to these 3 countries, Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali, declaring themselves away from ECOWAS, trying to form their own regional group. So the Biden administration, in terms of Africa, are more military assertive, right, in the Sahel region, trying to fight terrorism, right? And like I said, on the other side, they're trying to promote certain social issues, which has to do with gay, lesbians, and their rights. So these are some of the differences, right? Africans have to be able to define their interests, right? We should be able to define our interests in our relationship with the United States.
All right, Prof, thank you so much for speaking with us tonight.
Right. Thank you very much, right? Talk to you later.
All right, thank you so much for watching today, and that's the much we can take on Politics Now. See you some other time. Once again, my name is Morno Balagwebo. Thank you for watching.